Well, welcome to Notre Dame. It's the first game of the USA Tour, and it's, of course, one that you can see live here on LFCTV. There's been a real change in the weather as well in the last 24 hours or so, but this wonderful university town, it's got a population of somewhere close to 6,000, so 6 or 7 times that population will be inside the famous old stadium to see Dortmund take on Liverpool live here on LFCTV in the early hours of Saturday morning. Jason McAteer, who is also part of the fighting Irish culture, is here to talk us through a live training session that the local population have been invited into. So university is out for summer, but most of the students have come back to catch a glimpse of the European champions and a nice bit of respite from what has been some quite overwhelming heat in the last 24 to 48 hours. The players will be very grateful of that once the sprinklers come on, that they can hide a little bit from the heat that's been here.
I even ventured out myself this morning with Patrick Berger. We went for a little run because the heat's turned down a notch. You're right, it was up to 100 degrees yesterday, very, very hot. You know, training can become very disruptive, the heat, when it's like that. But today it's a lot cooler. I'm sure the gaffer will be happy that it's cooled down, because he can do what he wants on the training pitch, because the weather does play a part. So yeah, hopefully the weather stays like this, and it stays like this for tomorrow night's game.
We should also explain that the stadium, which is probably about a 2-minute walk from where we are stood on the training pitch here, only had its pitch laid on Wednesday, so that is still bedding down because of the thunderstorms that have happened here in the last couple of hours. They've decided to move it out here onto a slightly smaller pitch. The one thing you would say about the training pitch, Jason, is that it looks an awful lot better than the actual playing surface inside the stadium.
Yeah, it's been difficult, hasn't it? Obviously, because they play American football in the stadium predominantly, so they've had to lay the pitch down, and it was still going down yesterday and still knitting together. It shouldn't really be too much of a problem. But as you've just mentioned, the training facilities here are immense. I mean, the whole college, we were out yesterday having a tour around Notre Dame, and the facilities that the students get, 10,000 students come here. The facilities are second to none, I've got to be honest, and it's great that there's such an Irish feel as well. You mentioned it before, the Fighting Irish is their nickname, and I feel very at home. Obviously Boston and New York as well, there's going to be plenty of Irish coming to watch, so it's great for me. But as far as the facilities go, I mean, you can't get much better than this certainly to train on.
Dortmund's CEO was saying in the lead up to this game that if you want to be at a party, you have to go where the music is, and the USA is where the music is at the moment. Everybody's fighting for what is undiscovered, really, in terms of soccer, isn't it? Liverpool fans all over the world, but 40,000 inside the stadium. Any other corner of the world, it might be 100,000. So they're all fighting for that attention.
It's difficult to break into this market, really, certainly with soccer, because as you know, in the US, predominantly the 4 sports dominate, don't they? Basketball, ice hockey, American football, and what's the other one that they've got? There's 4, isn't there? I know there's 4. So it's very difficult to break into that market, but the women winning the World Cup a couple of weeks ago, that's going to certainly help. With the awareness and the profile of the game. They've done fantastically well here, but we've just come to open training today. It's a very small town, Notre Dame, as you mentioned, and Chicago was about 2 or 3 hours away. New York's about 8 hours away in a car, so it's quite a sleepy town when the students aren't here. So to actually get this many fans in to come to watch open training, and the amount of tickets that we've sold here has been a job well done, I think.
The players have loved it because they're actually able to go out and have a coffee. In fact, where the players' hotel was, there was the captain of Liverpool, who just won the European Cup, sat outside having a coffee. Nobody bothered him. I mean, they must love that.
Well, me and Paddy, as I mentioned before, went running this morning and then ventured into Starbucks for a coffee, and Simon Mignolet's just sitting in the corner texting away, no one bothering him. It's a nice welcome relief for the players, because not only are they household names certainly around the world, but what they've done with the Champions League, that goes up a notch as well, their profile. So it's very difficult for them to venture out and not have pictures and not have autographs, although they do like doing it. Sometimes it's nice just to have that peace and quiet where you can walk around and quite be anonymous, really, which is something that this town has given them.
Just pulling up the team bus at the moment as well. They will be very glad of the temperatures. What has it been all week? 37, 38 degrees. They've been training in that. James Milner's been leading all the runs as though he's still running back in Leeds. but they'll be glad, won't they, of slightly cooler temperatures to prepare for the game.
Certainly the players and the manager as well, because it does impact his schedule when the weather turns. I was away in pre-season in Hong Kong when the heavens opened, and it was biblical, the rain, and the pitch just waterlogged straight away, and there was actually nowhere for them to train, and it caused havoc, to be honest, with the schedule. The manager doesn't want to go a couple of days behind with the running and the training, because it's a vitally important part of the season. This probably the most important part, preparing for what's ahead. You want to get that fitness in, and this is the time to do it. The weather, as you've just mentioned there, has been so hot. They were supposed to do a running session yesterday, and that got slightly tweaked because of the heat. You just can't put the players through that. It is a burning heat. We played golf yesterday, me and Paddy, and even that was tough. So it just makes you wonder how hard it must have been for the players running around this training pitch, for half an hour, 45 minutes. It's very, very difficult, and the manager, it impacts on him as well, like I mentioned.
They are, of course, taking this step up in quality. We've seen the domestic friendlies so far. This will be a real test, won't it, against European sides in the next 4 or 5 games?
Arguably the biggest test that they're probably going to face pre-season. I mean, we've got some quality games, Sporting Lisbon and obviously Sevilla to come on this tour, and then we get back and it's Lyon and Napoli. Obviously we face Tranmere and Bradford as well, but Borussia Dortmund had a really good season in the Bundesliga last season. Obviously they've lost Pulisic, but Hummels has gone back, and they're expecting big things again this season. But it'll be a good test in front of a large crowd. Everyone will be up for it, and a real step up in quality for Liverpool. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare.
Lots of the players, of course, still missing, the ones that have taken part in those bigger tournaments. The Brazilians will be back in time for that training camp in Evian. There's 28 players out here, and I know people might look at it and say, well, it's been filled with youngsters, but those youngsters will be desperate to make an impression big enough to stay around at Melwood next season.
It's a fantastic opportunity for them, and I mentioned it before to you when we were talking. If you put a world-class squad together, unfortunately for a manager, he's going to have to come to terms with losing players for international duty. There's tournaments as well. Sadio Mane's not even back yet, and then there becomes a management job, from the staff of getting them through the season. January, February becomes a crucial part of the season. You've got to make sure there's no burnout, which has happened, in the summer. And like you just mentioned there, Firmino, Alisson, Salah, and Mane aren't here, but like you said, it gives the opportunity to these young kids. Adam Lewis, Rian Brewster in particular. Now Moreno's gone, Adam Lewis will be looking at that vacant spot, just in behind Robinson to help out.
Laruzzi as well, who's done well.
Laruzzi's done brilliant, yeah. I would probably say Adam Lewis is slightly ahead of him, but Laruzzi's progression has been fantastic. He showed qualities against Tranmere which were great, but I would say Adam Lewis is slightly ahead of him, and if he does well on this pre-season tour, puts food for thought in the manager said to think, he can be on the bench for me, he can be a backup to Robinson, so that really helps, and that's a testament to what Alex Inglethorpe and the staff have done, back at the academy, bringing these lads through. Rian Brewster looks fantastic. We've lost Daniel Sturridge, there's a vacant spot there, although Divock Origi has signed a new deal. He'll be thinking, if I put a good pre-season in here, I could be, on the bench for a few games, because you would suggest that Mane probably won't start the season.
And he said in his interview, an interview that you can check out, by the way, as of tonight on the LFC website and on LFCTV a bit later on as well, with Jurgen Klopp, who says, 90% of people might not be happy with news that it's not going to be the biggest transfer window we have, but he's always been a manager that's found solutions, hasn't he? He's found players to fit certain positions if that transfer market just isn't suited to them.
Well, exactly. I mean, he's always been a manager that will, like you said there, is looking for the right player, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a world star, a big name. It's someone that fits the philosophy. And there's a lot goes into a criteria of buying a footballer. It's not just about selling shirts, as we've seen some other football clubs, signing players for, balancing numbers and that kind of thing. The manager here wants a player who's going to put a shift in, who's going to work hard, he's going to be a team player, he's not going to upset anybody in the dressing room. He's a team player, and that's the most crucial part. But yeah, I mean, he's put a fantastic squad together. We've got a few players back from injury now. Certainly Oxlade-Chamberlain, we're looking at staying fit and getting a full pre-season under his belt and giving everything he can for the season, up and coming season. So that's great. Lallana will be in that boat as well. So if you look at the squad, we've got probably a right good balance in all areas. We've probably back up in most positions as well. We've got 6 or 7 players vying for that midfield role. So we're actually doing all right. There's not much that we would need, but if the right player is not there, the manager's not going to spend the money, which is a good thing.
He's talked about Adam Lallana almost again revitalised in a number 6 role. We've seen Henderson move into a number 8. Lallana could almost become like a new signing, couldn't he, in a different position this year?
It's funny because pre-season for me, I always felt was kind of a fresh start. You know, it's like a whole brand new beginning. You know, the season's gone, and you're taught that very quickly at Liverpool. It's like you can't rest on what's happened in the past. You've got to go again, and you've got to put all that behind you. Yeah, it's fantastic, and it was a great year last year, great season last year, but that's gone now, you know, and we've got work to do, and for some players it's a fresh start. You know, they won't be looking back, you know, they won't be pondering on what might have been last season. They're fit now, you know, they're in the manager's plans, they're going for a position, they're going to try and nail down that shirt, and Adam Lallana is one of them. So I'm expecting big things in pre-season. He started off very well, as James Milner has, and the two of them are wanting to nail down another position because they're all fighting to get in that first team.
He references that in his big interview as well about, and it's a phrase he used quite a lot last season, is it stay angry. Yeah, they've won the European Cup. Yeah, it's going to do brilliant things for the dressing room in terms of mentality. But he says this group of players are already hungry. They already want to go on and almost better what they did last year.
So the thing is, that's why I think Pep Guardiola deserves all plaudits from last season. You know, because if you can keep a team that's won something hungry like Sir Alex Ferguson did through the 90s, you know, that is a phenomenal job. You know, Jurgen Klopp, really, his job as a manager is ultimately just starting now. You know, he's put this squad together. He's won the Champions League. Now his management skills are going to come out because he needs to keep the players hungry. He's going to keep them wanting that desire to go again, not rest on your laurels. You know, if you lose, to have that ambition to go out and win again, 10-game streak, 15-game streak, what we've seen him done in the past. So his work starts now, but he's got a great set of players, as we know by being around them, who are hungry, they're ambitious, you know, and they really, really want to win that Premier League title. That's the holy grail, that's the ultimate, and they know that although they won the Champions League last season, they're already legends in their own right. If they get that Premier League title, they know what that'll do for this football club, and they're all pushing in that direction.
Just seeing the goalkeepers warm up behind us as well. There's a few great stories in there. He talked about Simon Mignolet having a coffee in Starbucks. But you got Andy Lonergan in there, who was released by Leeds United, didn't have a club. All of a sudden gets a phone call at the age of 35 to say, can you come and join Liverpool on a pre-season tour? You got Dan Atherton, who is a young under-23 goalkeeper, ended up playing up front against Tranmere. I mean, there's some wonderful stories about this pre-season
played well.
tour. He did okay, didn't he?
All right, yeah. In fact, he might be better centre forward than what he is a keeper. No, I mean, yeah, you hear these stories about certainly the older players, keepers, don't they? They come in just as cover. It's something that's not uncommon in the game. You know, we've seen it at City and other football clubs taking the older keepers, more experienced ones. They're good to have as backup. You know, very rarely needed. You know, in case there's an emergency, they might be used. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, Simon Mignolet is obviously going to get the opportunity because Alisson's not around. But yeah, I mean, there's good competition for places. You know, that they all know Alisson's the number one and that he's not going to be dislodged. But they're all very professional about it, and they know that they've all got a job to do if called upon. Certainly with Simon Mignolet as well.
Well, what about these intriguing battles, Jason, within the squad? Because you even look at the centre-backs, don't you? Joel Matip had a wonderful season last year, but, you know, Joe Gomez is going to be desperate to try and start this season like he started last season as first choice alongside Virgil van Dijk.
I felt really sorry for Joe because it looked like that Jurgen has made his mind up that he wanted to get that consistency in that partnership, which I think is vitally important. So I think that's an area of the pitch that, you know, you should. If you go back in history and you look at all the great teams, they've had a very settled back two, haven't they? You know, the centre-halves and the keeper, that little triangle, you know, is the foundations of what you're trying to do. And I think I got the feeling that Joe Gomez had a good pre-season last year and the manager set his sights on them, that three being the triangle, and unfortunately for Joe, he got injured, which obviously gave the opportunity to Joel Matip and for Lovren to fight it out, and you know it did. And then obviously Matip got the edge on Lovren because he got injured, and then Matip struck a good partnership up with Virgil van Dijk and ended up staying in for a prolonged time because of the unfortunate injuries to the other two players. But yeah, I mean, they done admirably well, won the Champions League as a pairing, so it was. So it was a good matchup, yeah.
Also with the fullbacks as well, they have a competition last year about the number of assists that they provided. It seems like there's going to be another competition this year, but that's great, isn't it, to have that within a squad, that they have this healthy competition within to better each other.
Yeah, I mean, Stig Bjornaby used to talk about it as well when we were playing. Obviously, we were a pair of wing-backs, slightly different than the full-backs, but, you know, we used to try and get as many assists as we could, and we always used to smile about it when one was, you know, ahead of the other in the assist charts. But that's good, healthy competition. You know, you don't want it to become sort of where they get single-minded and just, you know, like maybe with a striker where they want to score as many goals as they can, and the opportunity to pass is better than taking the shot on. You don't want it to become like that where they're just crossing for, you know, the sake of it. You want it to be very productive, and, you know, I'm sure the manager's got one eye on that. But the two of them were outstanding last season. Outstanding. Certainly Robertson took the eye, but the progression of Trent Alexander-Arnold over the last 3 or 4 seasons, coming where he's come from, you know, moving positions and then locking down that position, and arguably being one of Europe's best right backs, has been phenomenal for him. The rise has been brilliant, and another player who's really hungry for success, and being a local lad, he'll know what it means to try and win that title.
He's looked incredibly relaxed this week as well, Jurgen Klopp. He's been full of stories about how he was enjoying the Champions League and all of those things dawning on him. And almost this new relationship, he says, that he has with Liverpool fans now, because they all adore him. They all want to get a glimpse of him. But he said the opportunity he had to look into their eyes on that parade around Liverpool after winning the Champions League, he says it will stay with him for the rest of his life. One of the most special moments, he says, in all of his time. Not just as a football man, but just of all time, really.
There's lots of components and to being a football manager, isn't it? You know, trying to put a team together, then trying to win something, then trying to keep them hungry, as we mentioned before, to keep a good team spirit, and for them to keep believing in the philosophy and the job that he's trying to do in hand. So, you know, it's a very, very difficult job, as you know. You know, you go without a victory and with 10 games, and you talked about getting the sack. That's how quickly things can turn. So he knows the importance that he's got to keep winning. And as much as he said, like, you know, getting to all the finals and not winning wasn't a problem, deep down he knows that you're judged successfully on things you win. Yeah. You know, and the progression of the football club, you know, off the pitch has been phenomenal since he's been around. You know, it's not just what he does on the pitch, it's what he does off as well, which people don't see. That's been amazing. But he knew that he needed to get something under his belt, a trophy, and that would have come as welcome relief, that Champions League, for him. And, you know, he's going to go down arguably as one of the great managers of Liverpool Football Club for bringing that trophy. And you feel only half the work's done, because the way he's shaping this squad, the belief, the psychology of the game, the belief that winning that Champions League has done for his team, for his squad, you know, to feel that they belong in the top flight with the Madrids and the Barcelonas and the Cities, which what these lads will feel now after certainly being in the Champions League 2 seasons on the run and getting over the line last season. He knows what that impact will have, and he knows that they're ready now to try and win that title. They come so close last year. He knows that they're ready again to go again this season.
He's unique, isn't he? You spend a lot of time with him chatting about the current Liverpool picture and about, you know, the times when you were a player as well. There's nobody like him, is there? Nobody like him in world football, and it must be brilliant for these players to have him as their leader.
He's certainly the perfect match for Liverpool, you know, where we're at. You know, we see other football clubs searching for that match. You know, Chelsea have just taken on Frank Lampard, you know, very, very inexperienced. We'll have to wonder how that goes. You know, Pep going into Manchester City a few seasons ago, but the money he's at his disposal is slightly different than what Jurgen's had to deal with at Liverpool. You know, you look at Arsenal, have changed their manager. The old guard's gone, and Emery come in last season, done okay. But he's very settled at this football club. It's a great match. You know, what he's tried to do here, and he's tried to bring his players to do, it's happening. And he's just got to keep it going. But he knows the importance that you cannot rest on what you've done in the past. You've got to go again. You've got to keep striving. You've got to keep pushing. And he's built a very young team as well. You know, the average age come down a lot from the previous manager. But what I like about Jurgen is, you know, it sometimes can be very difficult for a manager when he goes in and he knows that a football club needs that instant success. You know, and you don't get that time sometimes to do that. It's been a long-term plan for Jurgen. You know, he knew that he had to build something here. The foundations weren't quite secure. He had to lay them down and build on it, knowing in the back of his mind, if it doesn't go right, then he's out of a job, because that's the nature of the game. And he's done it phenomenally well.
You're just seeing the players go through a warm-up here on the training pitch, which is just adjacent to the stadium that you'll see the game take part in, or take place at the University of Notre Dame, the Fighting Irish ground. It's a great facility. Jason McAteer, the voice that you hear there just a few moments ago, describing some of the facilities around here for all of the different sports. But the pitch is ordinarily an artificial one inside the stadium. They've not had natural grass on there since 2014, so believe it or not, they were still laying the grass yesterday. So with the thunderstorms that we've had here in this part of the world. They were not too keen on risking that in the training session here tonight. They were taking part in the running sessions yesterday, Jason, and I was saying to you, you know, at the age of 33, how fit were you? Because you always were recognised for having this great engine as a midfield player, and James Milner, very similar to that. Milner yesterday was absolutely out of this world. The coaches were laughing at him as to how he just wanted to carry on doing the runs.
He's a machine, isn't he? He's an absolute machine, the ultimate professional, you know. And I mentioned it before about Jurgen Klopp trying to put a squad together. You need people like James Milner if you're going to progress and be successful, because you can't do everything as a football manager. Once the lads step over that white line, you need leaders on the pitch that recognise when things aren't going quite right. Yeah, the manager's getting his instructions on, but it takes people like James Milner. Jordan Henderson's growing into that role as well, you know, through the years, through the confidence of the manager being able to do that. But them two just epitomise ultimate professionalism, and you know, they live the right way, they talk the right way, they're great lads off the pitch. What I love about Mill is he's got that touch of old school about him, I think, because he started so young, didn't he? You know, and he always comes over, he's always got something to say. You know, he's always wanting to know how you're getting on, or what you're up to, or how the golf's going. Or I had a great conversation with him this morning for about 20 minutes. He's always asking questions. But yeah, I mean, he's as far as his fitness goes, he's just a naturally fit lad, isn't he? Lives his life the perfect way, eats right, drinks right, and you get the feeling that he just loves football, absolutely loves football. And I know he's getting on, and some would say he probably, you know, will be coming into the twilight years, but I think he needs to be around the football club for a long, long time, because we've got some great kids coming through, and they look at James Milner and look how he applies himself into training, you know, the effort he puts in pre-season, you know, leading the line, leading the group, pushing people on. He's a great asset to have for the football club.
You'll have seen the pictures of him this week as well, looking like the Incredible Hulk when they were doing the stretching exercises. And again, Jurgen Klopp saying that, yeah, he is 33, he's 34 in January, and although he looks and he trains like a 22-year-old, we also have to be respectful of the fact that they have to protect him as well, because he'll want to play in every single game, won't he, this season? Yeah,
but I mean, you know, the science that goes on now with footballers, you know, yoga's crept in, isn't it? The different ways they stretch, and, you know, they keep subtle, don't they? And, you know, usually when you get to sort of early 30s, that's when the odd injury creeps in, you know, the odd hamstring, the odd calf, and that's when you need to be managed. But, I mean, he just stays so fit, doesn't he? I can't remember him the last time he got an injury. I mean, he's had a couple of impact injuries, wasn't he? A couple of bruises and stuff, but you know, I can't remember the last time he tore something, or he was out for a prolonged time.
He's probably one of those players who carries a lot of knocks and doesn't tell the physio like the old school players were.
He's got that mentality as well, hasn't he? You know, I tell you what he doesn't carry a lot of is body fat. There's absolutely nothing on him. He must be freezing in the winter.
He's like hugging a statue, isn't he, on those days when you win something?
And like when he pats you on the back as well, he takes your head off.
Lots of young midfielders around the group, as you can see. Sepp van der Berg, the big new Dutch signing that you see involved in the training session. Still a bit of a question mark as to whether we will see him for the first time in these US games. There's actually a member of the academy staff, Jason, out here at the moment, just looking after their welfare, because you forget how young some of these boys are, you know, away from their families at the age of 17, on a first-team tour, the pressure that they will carry internally to do well on these things.
It's a big thing coming on tour, and like you just said, they're only 17, you know, and not a lot of them have been around this set of lads, this group of staff, and they need, you know, someone they feel comfortable with. If it's not going too well, you know, they can go to that academy member of staff that they trust, and they can say, listen, I feel tired, or, you know, I'm just struggling at the minute, and, you know, we'll point them in the right direction. So it's a great thing to do, you know, to have that familiarity of someone they recognise and someone they know, because it can get difficult, because it's an intense period.
We've had some thunderstorms in Notre Dame, but it is returning to the weather that we have been witnessing since we arrived here on Monday. It's warm, it's muggy, facilities are fantastic here, but the stadium, which is just adjacent to where they're training at the moment, is where you can see the first of these US games right here on LFCTV. Details of how you can watch those on the website as well, but 12:15 for Matchday Live. 2 down, 5 to go. All 3 USA games here. Notre Dame first, Boston and New York, and also the games in Edinburgh and Lyon as well. Details of how to subscribe on the website as Liverpool warm up and take that big step up in quality for a brand new season ahead. Ian Rush saying earlier on in the week, Jason, as well, and you might subscribe to this theory as well, but for somebody who's won everything multiple times over, Ian Rush says that a good pre-season is always linked with having a good campaign. If you don't do well in pre-season, it can be very hard catching up.
It's vital, and I think the attitude is something that Rushy is probably alluding to there. You know, we done the game against Tranmere, and I was so impressed with the professionalism and the attitude of the players. You know, they were right at it. I felt sorry for Mickey Wellen, to be honest, because sometimes, you know, a team that's got quality, or Premier League team, when they play a lesser opposition, they can amble their way through the game, and, you know, they can win 1-0, sometimes it's 1-1. But Liverpool actually just wanted to batter Tranmere that night, and I felt sorry for Mickey at one point. It was 4-0, and it was, I said to you, didn't it? This is going on 8. And Liverpool were just clinical.
Do you have that in pre-season games sometimes? That desperation, not just to win and play well, but to batter teams, because you've got such a good feeling in the dressing room and that competitive edge.
Do you know what you might talk about it is it's Jurgen Klopp and his staff want that, but this is it's quite common at Liverpool. You know, we go back to Ronnie Moran and Roy Evans in the old boot room. It's like, you know, yeah, they might have been pre-season games and there might have been nothing on it apart from trying to get that fitness, but Ronnie would always say to you, you've got to win this game. You know, you've got to win, because it breeds a mentality. You know, and he hated it if the game went flat and we were ambling around, or if anyone was sloppy. He hated sloppiness, and that was in pre-season games. You know, our games, you know, we never come as far as this, you know, because, you know, commercially it wasn't the thing back then. But, you know, we went into Ireland, and then obviously the standard stepped up. I mean, I remember having Inter Milan one game pre-season, then we ventured into Norway. That was always a tough game, a couple of games in Norway, but they were always, we wanted to win. And I can't remember actually losing a pre-season game. I think we drew with Leeds one time in a tournament we played in Dublin. I think Napoli were involved in that as well, but they wanted to win every game, because that's the mentality. You know, you've got to win at all costs, even in these games. So I wouldn't say it's a new thing here at this football club.
One of those players that really impressed Jason McAteer in the certainly the domestic friendlies was Keanu Hoover, who's out there training in the group just in front of us at the moment. Became Liverpool's youngest ever player in that game over at Molineux, coming on as a very unexpected substitute. But he was saying to me on the plane that what you've got to remember is that all of my friends are still in college, all of my friends are still in school, and here he is training alongside the captain of his country and Virgil van Dijk. I mean, there's no better training school than that, is there?
Listen, he wants to be, he doesn't want to be in college with his mates. He wants to be kicking a ball around with some world-class players and learning. You know, he's a fantastic talent, but very level-headed. And I think, again, that's testament to Alex Inglethorpe and his staff, the way he manages and brings the players through. A lot of them are level-headed. You know, we've been away, haven't we, for 3 or 4 days, and a lot of the kids are coming over and saying hi. They all handle themselves, they all adapt themselves really well to a conversation. They can all hold a conversation, and they're all enthusiastic, well-mannered, nice young kids. And, you know, the thing is, you do see a few of them having a future here. You know, this just isn't a breeding ground like some football clubs where they ship them out, you know, 30, 40 players on loan who don't really have the opportunity to play in the first team. They're just sold on, and money that just keeps funding their academy, looking for that one-off diamond. These young players, some of them are going to get their opportunity at this football club, and if they grasp it with 2 hands, they could stay in the team. You know, fingers crossed nothing happens to the full-backs, but certainly in that left-back position, if you think Adam Lewis got the opportunity, you would feel he could take it. I don't think he would get overawed by the extent of being in the first team and playing against, you know, say a Manchester United 70,000 Old Trafford. I actually think he could handle himself, Adam Lewis. You know, there's no guarantee of that because we haven't seen that, obviously. But, you know, the way he talks, the manner, the way he holds himself, I could see him handling that situation very well.
You got Harry Wilson also coming back to Liverpool, 18 goals in the Championship. He's a massive Liverpool fan, Jason, and of course he's going to want to do what's best for his career. He's going to want to play football because he deserves to play a lot of football. But I just wonder whether there's a slight question in the mind of Jurgen Klopp. Could he maybe stay and provide some kind of competition for that front three?
Well, you just think of, you know, the transfer market. I don't think it's going to be as productive as maybe a few people might want it to be. So that suggests that if we want to keep a big squad, then there's no reason why you wouldn't keep Harry Wilson, you know, he's scored, like you said, 18 goals for Derby. He's had a full season. You know, he's week in, week out football. It's done him the world of good. He's 22 now. You just think, though, does Harry Wilson want to sit on the bench? Does he want to wait for that opportunity? Does he want to waste possibly a season because if no one gets injured, or he's not going to get in? You know, does he want to, you know, stifle his progression? That's up to him, his agent, the manager and his family to decide. But I'm sure the manager knows the importance of keeping a strong squad, keeping a big squad for the season ahead, because we mentioned at the top of the show, this squad's going to have to be managed this season more than ever, because there's a lot more football to be played. They played a lot more football in pre-season. As we mentioned, Sadio Mane still not back from international duty. You know, the lads, the Brazilian lads got to the final of the Copa America. You know, Mo Salah done very well with Egypt. He was away for a long time. The England lads had games in the Nations League. So they played a lot of football. So come that January, February time, that crucial time when there's a lot of games in a short period of time, you know, the weather's changed. International games are still going ahead, and people forget, you know, when there's an international week, 90% of the squad go away and play. It's not a rest. People think, oh, it's international week, it's a rest for the lads because there's no domestic football. People just assume that, but they're not. They're flying all over the world playing, so that takes its toll. So they're going to have to be managed very, very well this season.
Also, the extra demands of the English Football League trophy, which the youth team or the under-23s will take part in this season as well. And you do wonder about the ethos of that as well, don't you? These young players who aren't part of the first team picture will get the chance to play competitive football against Football League teams. Will that be good for their education, do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you look at Sir Alex Ferguson and his success through the 90s and things that he did. You know, even you can even talk about the leagues in Europe, the likes of the German league, French league, Spanish league. The Premier League now is so strong when it comes to financial clout. They can go into these leagues and just take the best players, as we've done in the market this season. But what that does is it gives the opportunity when them players go from, say, the Bundesliga. The young players are getting in the first team. They're getting that experience very, very young. They're starting to win things. Then they go on to international football, and it's no surprise that Germany have dominated for years. You know, because these young players, these young German players, are getting the opportunities to play in their domestic seasons at 16, 17 and 18. So the progression is a lot quicker than I think that as players in England are. Maybe that's the reason why England don't do really well in major tournaments, possibly. But, you know, I think what else is Sir Alex Ferguson did is he played these kids, didn't he, in these competitions, the League Cup, and they ultimately went on and won it. Now, if you win something, what that does psychologically and mentally for you is phenomenal. You know, that will to win, winning something, that team spirit, doing it together as a team. It's like you couldn't get any better bonding. Yeah. You know, and they want to do it again. You want that feeling again, and that's all part of the learning curve. So, yeah, it's been unfortunate the last couple of seasons because we've gone out of that competition really early. But, you know, I think there'll be an importance this year on that because of the development of the youth.
It'll be interesting to see how that works out with loans as well. And Jurgen Klopp's always said that very difficult for a young player of even 21, and we think 21-year-olds are quite old in football analogies, but a 21-year-old going on loan to a club in London, never cooked for himself, never lived away from home, and then he's got to go and sit in the seat of a 33-year-old centre-back whose place he's trying to take in the team. You know, this is all part of the education, isn't it? They can develop together as a team, as a young team, maybe play for a cup competition like the English Football League trophy. That can be a really big thing in their career.
Well, back to that, the Man United ethos is they all come through together, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, and then they all progressed into the first team. They had the understanding. They bonded really well. You know, a lot of them players did go out on loan early doors. I remember David Beckham going to Preston, didn't he? Other young Man United players going out on loan, but then they all come together. They had a successful time in the League Cup, and then they all progressed to the first team. And they dominated English football for 10 years, 12 years. So there's got to be something in it, hasn't there? So there is a massive importance, but like you keep saying, this football club and this manager, you know, they will give the opportunity to the kids. And that's good for them as well, because if they feel that it's all for nothing, you know, what chance, I'm never going to get in this first team, or I'm never going to get the opportunity, they might as well look elsewhere. And sometimes players, they don't quite develop maybe until 22. We all don't develop at the same age. You know, Brewster's probably ahead of his time at the minute. That's not to suggest there's someone else coming through that mightn't be as good as him by the time he gets to 21. So, yeah, it's important, and you need to keep an eye on it, and they'll get that opportunity when it comes around.
Just a reminder that the game UK time kicks off 1 o'clock in the morning, early hours of Saturday morning, Liverpool against Dortmund. It's the third friendly that we've brought to you live here on LFCTV. If you're not a subscriber, do get on the website and check out how you can do exactly that and spend your early hours of Saturday morning. You might be just getting back in from a night out by then. Check out the Reds in USA. This is a training session that is open to the public here at Notre Dame, and our cameras have been invited in as well by Jurgen Klopp to give you an insight into how they're preparing for the big game. We're going to let the pitchers do the talking for a little while now. Jason McAteer and I will be back very soon to talk you through the final stages of it.
You got that much?
1 minute.
Yeah, it's been a good insight, hasn't it, to see Liverpool training at such close quarters in this open training session at Notre Dame. And as you can see, weather has changed quite significantly since we first came on air. Everybody was shielding under all kinds of shelters before. The sun has come out and they're expecting it to be anywhere close to 40 degrees by the time the game kicks off tomorrow night. And it's one that you can see live here on LFCTV. One thing you said to me before was just one word: intensity. We can see how intense this training session is now as we get a bit closer to kick off.
Even in the heat, you know, the pace of it's been brilliant, but there's a demand by the coaches and Jurgen Klopp. You can see that. You know, it's interesting to see Jurgen just delving into little pockets of the pitch. You know, even when the ball's on the other side, on the right-hand side, he's delving into that left-hand side. The routes he's had a talking to in a positive way about different things. So I spoke to James Miller a couple of times. It looks like they're working on an overload, to be honest, on one side, and then quickly switching it to the other, which is quite a common training technique. But I've been very impressed with the intensity of it. And like you just said there, you know, it's cranked up a notch, hasn't it? I haven't got my cream on. I'm a little bit worried, to be honest. But,
yeah. You, that.
I know, like an old Louis Vuitton.
What about we've seen the domestic games, he's picked two teams, hasn't he? He's played 1-11 first half. Might that change a little bit now that he might leave players on for slightly longer to get?
Yeah, usually the first couple of games, that's the common procedure, isn't it? Two teams, you know, not give anyone really too much football, you know, for a couple of reasons, not to get them, you know, overexerted and certainly not to get them injured, you know. So I think that could change tomorrow. I think he could go, you know, start shaping the team really. You know, obviously you could turn around to me and say that probably the team picks itself, but you know, he'll have other ideas, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, about managing the teams and the squad, you know, for up and coming games, because of the intensity that some of the players have had through the summer. So we're not quite sure how he's going to start the season, but it will start taking shape probably from tomorrow night's game. Borussia Dortmund are a good quality team, and like we've mentioned before, he won't want to get beat. You know, so this is a good quality team he's facing tomorrow. He won't want to get beat. I'm sure he'll pick a strong team for certainly an hour.
We've talked about some of the young players as well and the impression that they've made so far. Brewster up against top European opposition will be a big test for him as well, won't it?
Really like him, yeah, great attitude. The shades I said the other day, you know, if you look at him, you know, we're out here with Rushy, you know, he's got that, you know, he's got that presence about him, the way he runs, like Rushy, he hangs on the shoulder, he's not frightened to close down. Rushy was, you know, one of the best ever at closing down. We think this is a modern thing that's crept into the game, is closing down. Rushy was doing it in the 80s and doing it brilliant, by the way. You know, so I can see, you know, shades of that in him. And then some of the finishing we showed over the last two games, the shades of Robbie Fowler in him as well. So, you know, if he turns out half as good as either one of them two, he's got a chance. But yeah, he looks the part. You know, he's built up because of the injury. He's like spent a lot of time in the gym. He's grown because of his age and because of that. I like the way he held the ball up. But most importantly, his decision making was very, very good. When he bought himself a yard, he got the shot away. When it wasn't on, he released it. It stuck when it come into him. He wasn't frightened to go that way. He'll come that way. So he's got lots of aspects of his game, which is very, very positive. it's all part of the learning curve. Let's see how he handles maybe tomorrow, you know, when the opposition steps up a notch.
They do kind of step up that notch as well as the crowd gets bigger. They expect something like 40,000 to be inside the stadium for the team that finished up second in Bundesliga, and it's a game that you can see live here on LFCTV, the first of 3 US games that you can see live, and Match Day Live underway with myself and Jason and other special guests from 12:15 a.m. UK time. Players are going to meet some of the fans here in the next few minutes. We'll bring you more reaction to today on our website, liverpoolfc.com. Enjoy the rest of your night. Bye-bye.